it's tough to be talking about budgeting back in Washington, D.C. right now, because things are tough and tight. We recognize that. But I think we also recognize that we can't shirk from that responsibility and the requirements that are out there. Legacy Coast Guard assets in this state are aging. The current acquisition timeline leaves Alaska pretty far down the list for replacement of lost assets. In the last few years, we've seen the decommissioning of the Acushnet. This is a medium endurance cutter with 67 years of service. It was home ported down in Ketchikan. The Acushnet patrolled the North Pacific and the Bering Sea. It could stay underway for weeks at a time. Now the replacement for the Acushnet is going to be one of the fast response cutters that you mentioned, Senator Landrieu. This is going to arrive in service in 2014, so we've got a gap there. Another issue with the fast response cutter is it will stay underway for only 5 days, which is the equivalent of our legacy patrol boats. So while the fast response cutter will be a stopgap solution until the offshore patrol cutters are in service, it will be years before an offshore patrol cutter is eventually home ported here in the state. In the meantime, our only high endurance cutter, which is the Monroe, which is stationed here in Kodiak, is quickly exceeding its useful life. It was commissioned back in 1971. The Monroe has the ability to spend up to 30 days at sea. It was fairly recently brought to Alaska back in 2007 from Alameda, California, and before then, we did not have a high endurance cutter. In 2008, the Monroe served a vital role in rescuing 20 souls from the sinking of the Alaska Ranger fishing vessel. Again, a pretty remarkable story. But unfortunately, in the not too distant future, I worry that again we may be without a high endurance cutter, and the multi-mission responsibilities here in District 17 could overwhelm the Alaska-based assets. The Berthoff, which we'll have an opportunity to see tomorrow, one of the national security cutters that will replace the high-endurance cutters, will continue to patrol the North Pacific and the Bering, but it's going to do so from Alameda, California. I'm concerned about all this because there was a recent GAO report that found that reduced operational capacity of the high-endurance cutters has hindered mission performance. The report says that high-endurance cutters and their replacement national security cutters are the only vessels in the Coast Guard capable of safely launching and recovering the small boats and aircraft in the Bering Sea. Now, it takes about 24 days round trip for the Berthoff to travel the 3,000 nautical miles from Alameda to here in Kodiak. That's 24 days that could be spent underway in the Bering Sea. So I do have concerns, and I think it's appropriate to express them. As I convey my comments, I recognize that it may appear that I'm not satisfied with what I have here in District 17 with the assets. I am grateful for the Coast Guard, the men and women, and the presence of all that you do, but I also recognize that we ask an extraordinary amount of the men and women who serve us, and we have an obligation to provide you with those assets that allow you to do the job, do it well, and do it safely so that you return home to your families. And I worry because that water is big and deep and broad and many, many, many times dangerous. And whether you're on the sea or whether you're the helo in the air plucking fishermen out of waves that are 20 feet high and gales that are blasting, we put you in harm's way, and we've got an obligation to ensure that you have the assets to do what you do so honorably. So I look forward to working with my colleague, working with you, Admiral, and so many of our leaders. And again, thank the Senator for her time and attention here in Alaska.
Thank you, Senator. And Admiral, we'll go right into your opening statement.
Well, thank you, and good morning, Chairman Landrieu.